So now that we have a method, right? So we've got a means of entering in those names into the array. We're going to need to do something to be able to get those out, right? So here I have for you the names that should be entered into those elements in the array. You're going to have to excuse them starting at 1 instead of 0. It's a permanent quirk in Sublime Text. So squint at it until the 1 goes away, I guess. So now what we want is to get the names out of our array. So let's make a display to let the user know that they have entered names into the array. We can even let them know how many names they entered into the array. We can tell them they entered so many names into the array. We can do this. We can use counter plus 1, because what this is going to display, and I'll give that space there, you have entered counter plus 1. So here my counter is inside of this loop. It's getting a value. So from our example, the value of counter was 0, 1, 2. So if I output counter plus 1, there are 3 names into the array, and that turns out to be absolutely perfect for the user. Now, if I could spell, we're going to want to display these are the names in the array. So that's it. These are the names in the array. So what are we going to need? We're going to need to have a looping mechanism. We're going to have to go through and iterate through our array so that we can output the values that are stored in there. Now, I actually suggest a repeat until is a good means of getting through here, because I know that I'm going to want to display at least something in there. And with a repeat until, this code is going to execute 1 time. So this makes a really good looping mechanism to be able to get our way through this array. So repeat until something. We can say no more names. We could say until end of array. We could say, there's a ton of different ways we can do this, but this turns out to work. No more names. So what am I going to want to repeat? I am going to want I'm going to want a way to get through this array. So if we're going to reuse things, I always advocate for reusing, we're going to have to reset that counter. This time around, I want to reset my counter so that the same counter I used, to iterate through and get names, I can just use the same variable and iterate through and display names. But because I was adding to it, I was incrementing the counter here inside of my first do while loop, I'm going to want to stop that here. I'm going to want to reset my counter, and I'm going to want that to equal 0. So repeat until. And what I'm going to want is to display, and I'm going to want names underscore array at counter, because remember, I'm going to iterate through. So the first time I come through this repeat until block, this is names array at 0, which is the first element like we see here in that array. Perfect, right? All I'm going to want to do is display names array at counter. I'm just going to get fancy here and add a comma space. Or really, let's just get quasi fancy and add a blank space in here. And that's it. That's it. We could be done. That's all of it. Isn't that nice? Isn't that amazing? That's how great array operations are. Repeat until, no more names in names underscore array. So this way, when the environment knows that the data element is full, that's it. So repeat until no more names in names array. So this is going to go through, almost done. Counter plus plus. I almost walked into the infinite loop there. It would only display Egbert because Egbert was my first name in there. I did need to add this line of code here to increment the counter, right? So this way, display array names at 0 is the first loop through, and then a space, and then we increment the counter. We come back up to the top of our repeat here, display names at 1, which is Eggzilla, and then increment the counter, display egg names at 2, which is Eggy, increment the counter, and then we come through here and display essentially a blank. There is no more names in the array, and that turns out to work really fantastic. So we've got two pieces here. Video number 1, or additional video number 1, was how to enter those names into the array, and we included methods for assuring that we don't add too many names to our array, and we assured that we don't have erroneously entered data in by giving the user an opportunity to get out of the array. Here, with the second part, we just want to get the data out of our array. So to do that, we're going to reuse counter, which means if I'm going to reuse that, I have to reset the counter at 0. I have a simple repeat until there are no more names in names array. And then I'm going to use that counter, remember it's reset at 0, to display the names in the array at that element, and away we go. That's it.